You sit down to meditate. Close your eyes. Breathe. Try to be present. And then it starts. A thought drifts in. You notice it. Push it away. Another appears. You push harder, then another, and another, until you're no longer meditating. You're fighting. Jaw tight. Shoulders tense. A quiet war unfolding inside your skull. And beneath the frustration, something you might never have considered. The pushing itself is violence, not the thoughts, the resistance. Jiddu Krishnamurti spent decades pointing to this truth. Simple, devastating, almost impossible to see because you're the one doing it. What if the effort to silence your mind is precisely what keeps it loud? Krishnamurti asks, a question most people never consider. Not, how do I stop thinking? But what is thinking? Not the content of thought. Not whether thoughts are good or bad. The actual movement itself. Watch this. Someone asks your name. You respond instantly. No gap. No searching. No effort. Why? Because it's familiar. Your brain has repeated this 10,000 times. There's no activity of thought, just immediate response. But ask something you don't know. The distance between here and London, the formula for something complex, and watch what happens. A gap, a searching, a time interval where the brain is moving, looking, trying to find an answer. That movement, that's searching, that's thinking. And when you're asked a question and you genuinely don't know the answer, not, I don't know, but I'll figure it out. Not, I don't know, but someone else does. Just, I don't know. When you actually say, I don't know, and mean it, what happens to the movement of thought? It stops. The brain is no longer seeking, asking, searching. It becomes absolutely quiet. Not because you forced it, because it doesn't know. But most of us are never in this state. Our brains are always occupied, churning, what we're doing, what we'll say next, yesterday's argument, tomorrow's meeting, the mistake we made, the thing we forgot, the person who hurt us, the success we want, thought acquiring more knowledge and responding from that knowledge, over and over, a loop that never completes. And this is where the violence begins, not in the thinking itself, in what you do with it. You're in the middle of a conversation. Someone is talking, but you're not really listening. You're rehearsing your response, thinking about what you'll say, how you'll sound, whether they'll agree. And suddenly, you catch yourself. I'm not present. I need to stop thinking and just listen. So, what do? You try to force your mind quiet. You tell yourself, be here. Stop planning. Just be. But the thoughts keep coming. Faster now. More insistent. And Krishnamurti reveals something most people never see. The part of you trying to silence your thoughts is itself part of the noise. The controller who says, be quiet, is just another thought, another layer of activity, another movement creating conflict. You haven't escaped the stream. You've created another current within it. Psychological violence, not dramatic, not external. A subtle war you're waging inside your own head every single day. You're dividing yourself, the thinker and the thought, the observer and the observed, the one who wants silence and the noise that won't be silenced. But Krishnamurti points to something radical. The thinker is not separate from the thought. They are one movement. When you see this, actually see it, not as a concept, but as a living fact, the conflict ends. The division collapses. What remains is simply what is. Water doesn't try to make itself wet. Fire doesn't try to make itself hot. The division is imaginary. But why is this so hard to see? Why do we keep dividing ourselves even after we've heard this 1,000 times? Because the division gives us something, a sense of control, a feeling that someone is in charge, that if you can just become a better observer, stronger witness, you'll finally transcend your mind. The ego doesn't fight this teaching. It absorbs it. It becomes the spiritual seeker, the one who's working on themselves, the one who's learning to observe without attachment. And suddenly, you have a new identity. I'm the kind of person who meditates, who practices mindfulness, who watches their thoughts. You've replaced one prison with another. The bars look different. They're decorated with spiritual concepts now, but you're still trapped. Krishnamurti says something that most people don't want to hear. Thought is matter. Anything thought creates is material. Your gods, your practices, your observer, all of it matter. Thought arises from memory. Memory comes from experience. Experience is always limited. You experience something. It gets stored as knowledge. That knowledge becomes memory. And from that memory, thought responds. This entire chain is mechanical, material, limited. So when thought tries to free itself from thought, when the limited tries to transcend the limited, there's only conflict. The controller is made of the same substance as what it's trying to control. When you try to stop a thought by force, where does it go? It doesn't disappear. It goes underground, becomes tension in your neck, tightness in your chest, restlessness in your legs. The thought hasn't stopped. It's just changed form. What you resist doesn't dissolve. It returns, stronger, more demanding. Resistance itself is energy, and that energy feeds the very thing you're trying to eliminate. You cannot think your way out of thinking. You cannot use violence to end violence. And when the fighting stops, not through effort, but through seeing, something reveals itself. You observe the movement of thought without trying to change it, without naming it as good or bad, without the urgency to make it stop. A thought arises. I'm inadequate. Instead of fighting it or believing it, you see it. Thinking is happening. Not, I am thinking a thought. Just, thought is arising, moving, fading. The moment you observe without interference, without the observer who judges and controls, something shifts. Awareness itself reveals the whole movement, and in that revelation, the thought completes itself. It doesn't need to be pushed away. It dissolves, like a wave that forms and returns to the ocean. It was never separate. The division was imaginary. Right now, as you hear this, a thought might be moving through. Is this true? Am I doing this right? Will this work for me? See it, not to change it, not to believe it, to see it moving through. But watch this carefully. Even this seeing can become another technique, another thing the mind does to feel spiritual, to feel like it's progressing. The ego is clever. It will turn observation itself into a practice, something you do for 10 minutes in the morning, something you're getting better at, something that makes you different from people who don't observe. And then you're back in the trap, just with more sophisticated language. Krishnamurti points to something beyond all of this, the brain that says, I don't know, not as a technique, not as humility, but as an actual state. Such a brain is not occupied. It's not churning through knowledge, comparing, judging, seeking. It's quiet, not the silence you create through effort, the silence that's always been here, underneath the noise. This is the brain that is free from psychological violence, not because it has no thoughts, because it has no conflict with them. And when there's no conflict, your nervous system stops fighting itself. The tension dissolves. The body regulates naturally. Stress isn't managed. It simply isn't created in the first place. The body has always known what the mind forgot. Krishnamurti would say, don't observe your thoughts to get a result. That's still the old game. Still thought trying to control thought. Still violence wearing a spiritual mask. Observe, because in this moment, this is what is. And the truth doesn't need a reason. To know oneself, not through accumulation of information about yourself, but through direct seeing. This is wisdom, the state of not knowing, being free from the violence of psychological becoming. So the question lives with you now. What if you stopped fighting your mind? What if today you let thoughts come and go without interference, without believing them, without suppressing them, without trying to make them stop, without even trying to observe them correctly? The silence you're seeking isn't at the end of a war. It appears the moment you lay down your weapons. The violence ends when the controller is seen for what it is. Another thought, another movement, another layer of noise pretending to be the solution. Krishnamurti says, when you actually say, I don't know, and you mean it, the activity of thought comes to an end for the moment. The brain is absolutely quiet because it doesn't know. In this breath, in your willingness to stop forcing, stop controlling, stop waging war on your own mind. The peace you're looking for isn't something you create. It's what remains when you stop disturbing it. These teachings point. They don't conclude. They don't arrive. They dissolve. If something here resonated, walk with us. There are more paths to explore, not to arrive somewhere, but to see what's already here. Be still, not by force, by seeing.